This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. We need to talk about Thomas the Tank Engine. Hey you, my name is TomSka Ridgewell, and if you're wondering why I'm dressed like a burglar, it's because I'm here to steal your childhood. Now, I don't make review, reaction, commentary style content really, but after the emotional roller coaster I've been through, I felt like it was somewhat of a moral obligation to shine some light on this franchise because it's a lot. I've been through a lot. I like to think that I had quite a conventional relationship with Thomas the Tank Engine growing up. I watched it when I was younger, and then when I wasn't younger, I didn't really watch it. That was it. I walked away with plenty of fond memories, playing with the toys, imagining life riding those silly little trains. I also walked away with some not great memories, mostly the fact that eventually children made the connection between my name of Thomas and the tank engine's name of Thomas.
He's a cheeky little engine.
They called me Thomas the Tank Engine. They weren't very imaginative, but I stopped going by Thomas for about 20 years. It's fine. I love children, just like Trevor.
Oh yes, I like children.
This is in my brain now. It is everything I talk about I will refer back to Thomas the Tank Engine with. However, there's been an even deeper grudge, trauma even, that I have held with this show for near enough the entirety of my life, until a couple of weeks ago, and that is what they did to poor old Henry. You took a train that was afraid of a little bit of rain. He went into a tunnel and never came out again. I really butchered that line. I didn't go into it intending on doing the rhyme, but it just kind of happened. But then they bricked him up. He goes into a tunnel, he doesn't want to come out, and instead of just going, "You're a dickhead, we'll leave you alone for a little bit until you grow up," they remove the tracks and they brick him into the tunnel. He just rots there. Other trains whip by, they say poop poop at him.
I'm going to poop poop at Henry.
They do say poop poop. I've read the books. And that's it. He just dies in there.
I think he deserved his punishment. Don't you?
No, I don't think he deserved it. What the fuck? That's not okay. That's how I've remembered that for, again, nearly 30 years, until a couple of weeks ago, when someone on my Discord server by the name of Lockie explained that, no, they just let him out in the next episode. I didn't know that. I have gone near enough my entire life thinking that he's just in there in real time, because he's real, running away, having a horrible time. I didn't know he got out.
Oh, I am stiff, he groaned.
But while it was nice to get that closure, it left me wondering, what else didn't I know? What else did I misremember? How deep did this rabbit hole / train tunnel, very good, go? Are the trains slaves? Do they die? Does the entire universe exist inside of a pocket dimension? The answer is yes to all of those things. In the past couple days, I've read 26 books, watched multiple seasons, a handful of films, and I am burdened with so much knowledge that I would very much like to unload upon you. I must be free of it, you see. So let's dive down the rabbit hole of Thomas the Tank Engine and see what comes out the other side. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a bricked up tunnel. So the first thing I think we all need to be armed with going into this is a baseline understanding of this brand, this franchise, this empire. It started in 1945 as the Railway series, a collection of obey your parents style storybooks by the Reverend W. Awdry.
I like trains.
In 1984, it was adapted into Thomas and Friends by Britt Allcroft. This is the TV series that I think a lot of us will associate with Thomas the Tank Engine, where it's the actual physical models. They ran like this for about 12 seasons or so before it finally became a CGI product. I believe within the fandom, these are kind of regarded as three separate canons, as it were. You've got the books, you've got the semi-live action series, and then you've got the CG later stuff. I'm looking at all of them. Help me. So one of the first questions I wanted / needed to answer on this journey was, what's up with the sentients? How alive are they? Why are they alive? How are they born? What is alive? And I gotta be honest with you, I didn't get many straight answers. It only ever seems to be in the books that the idea of the trains being born is even really acknowledged. They're built We do know that much. I don't know when the face shows up, when they gain that sentience. In the 2000 movie, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, we see a train's face appear as she travels through some magical interdimensional portal to the island of Sodor.
So, Burnett, you didn't forget about magic. It's safe inside you.
You know what? We'll get back to Thomas and the Magic Railroad.
Now that's better.
But ultimately, it's not really clear when the face shows up. It just kind of does. I think it might be based somewhat on intention. It's like, we love this thing, so now it has a face.
How am I alive?
I don't know.
But why don't all the trains have faces? In season 3, episode 4, Gordon and the famous visitor, the city of Truro, a real-life train, shows up to the island and distinctly does not have a face. It's just not there. We are told it has a lovely chat with the other trains.
He enjoyed talking to the other engines till long after the stars came out.
So apparently it can communicate, but it just doesn't have a face. Why doesn't it have a face? Is it dead? Are they just telepathic? Is the face simply there for our entertainment? I don't know.
How?
Furthermore, plenty of things have faces in this universe. You've got buses, you've got cars, you've got boats, you've got helicopters, you've got cranes. But then again, all of those things sometimes don't have faces. In fact, there's only, I think, 3 boats in the entire franchise that have faces. A vast majority, just regular boats. Why don't they all get faces? And you know, maybe you're just thinking, okay, vehicles. Some vehicles talk, some vehicles don't talk. There's a tumbleweed that talks.
Follow me, partner. Right this way to Bufferville. Just a walk in the park.
He doesn't have a face or anything. Why can the tumbleweed talk? Why? So while I never really got much of a conclusive answer on how and why these things are alive, one thing that became abundantly clear is that they are fully aware that they are alive, specifically that they are aware of their mortality, and they are terrified of death. They are scared and in danger all the time.
Bruh.
Now don't get me wrong, these trains are not easy to kill. It is surprisingly hard to kill them. I've learned many ways in which they don't die. In book 20, we learn that Renius and Skarloey are over 100 years old, and I assume they've only gotten older as time's gone on, so clearly old age, at least in human years, not something that kills them. In the 2015 Origin movie, The Adventure Begins, we learn that disuse and disrepair is not something that kills them. Glyn, the original #1 train that Thomas so rudely usurps, has been sat on a siding for some 50-odd years, just getting overgrown with leaves and foliage, and just seems surprisingly chipper about it.
My name is Glenn.
Nobody asked.
In season 5, episode 26, Snow, we find that they are somewhat impervious to freezing to death, as Skarloey has an entire avalanche fall on him, and he somehow creates an igloo around himself from, I guess, the heat of his boiler?
No one knew that the heat from Skarloey's engine had helped to make an igloo.
That's not how things usually work. Hell, in season 3, episode 16, we watch a brake van get completely crushed to bits.
Good.
And they just take his face away, and he's alive. His face is alive. I think it's all about the face. I think the face is the bit that's alive. I mean, there is the distinctly rusted over, seemingly dead train that Thomas finds in the Nevada desert that he's somehow in the 2018 movie Big World, Big Adventure, but his face at least isn't there. So maybe someone took the face. Maybe he's fine. He's probably not fine. In season 4, episode 1 and 2, we learn the story of Duke, who is left abandoned in a shed which gets completely covered by a landslide, and he is forgotten about for decades. You know what he does to pass the time? Just goes to sleep.
Oh well, he sighed. I'll go to sleep. It'll help pass the time.
He doesn't even seem to notice or care, but they eventually just find him, clean him up, no hard feelings. The thing that really stresses me out about Duke surviving being buried under a landslide for over 20 years is that over 20 years ago, I buried all of my Thomas and Friends toys on a beach in Fuerteventura and then forgot about them, and then we had to go home and I left them there. Now, the next year, we went back on holiday and my dad said, "Hey Tom, you should bury in the beach right here," and lo and behold, I found all of my Thomas and the Tank Engine toys, except let's be honest, they probably weren't the same ones, which means that the same ones are still down there, buried and waiting for me to find them.
He's still covered in sand though.
Now, at this point, you might just be thinking, I guess death just doesn't exist in this universe, but oh, it very much does. You know the Fat Controller? He's dead. In the book The Island of Sodor, its people history and railways, we learn that we are actually on Sir Topham Hatt III. 2 Fat Controllers have died. They just don't bring it up. They just replace him. Like when a child's pet goldfish dies and the parent just flushes it and replaces it with another one. Kid doesn't notice because it looks the same. Same principle.
Wait, that says 111. How many of these guys have there been?
Now, there is one way in the series that it is acknowledged that a train can die of somewhat natural causes, and it's quite upsetting. I won't lie to you. They can suffocate. They can drown. The mouths that they have on those faces, I have to assume they take in oxygen, because not only in the 2012 movie Blue Mountain Mystery does Luke think he's killed Victor after he pushes him off a boat into the sea, he thinks he killed him.
I knocked the yellow engine into the sea.
In season 5, episode 24, Duncan Gets Spooked, we learn the story of a narrow gauge engine that falls off a viaduct and drowns. We see him plummet into the water, and they say he was a lost cause, and they left him there, and no one ever saw him again. He is dead.
He was never found again.
Great news. The trains can drown.
Engines don't swim, Henry. You were meant to deliver fish, not swim with them.
I'm so high!
The trains I left in Fuerteventura. What if they drowned? They can do that now.
Well, he's dead.
However, there is one more, far more common way in which these trains meet their demise, and it is violently thrown in front of their faces near enough every day, and it is by getting scrapped.
Scrap, said Edward quietly. Douglas gasped. Don't mention that word. It makes my wheels wobble.
This is a mortifying and incredibly real threat that is made throughout every book, throughout every movie, throughout the whole series.
They're going to break me up next week.
Oh god, it is so much. So first of all, on the island of Sodor are multiple scrapyards and the smelter's yard, all of which are filled with dozens of dead trains. Straight up rusted train carcasses. Some of them are missing the little face slot, but some of them just have rusted over bits where I think the face is supposed to be, and these are just unmistakably dead trains. They are littered all over the place. I mean, generally, there are bits of trains scattered around the entire series, mostly things like wheels, which would just be like walking down the street, and there's just some legs and arms just splattered around.
That's fucked up.
But again, in this universe, they get bits replaced a lot, but, you know, ship a Theseus. At what point is it not the same train? At what point do you accept that the train is dead? I think it's when you're confronted with scenes like this. As an aside, speaking of ripping off and replacing limbs, in Book 19, Chapter 4, we learn the story of Godred, a little engine that falls down a mountain due to his own negligence, and they just decide, you know what, we're not gonna fix you because you're a piece of shit. And they drag him in to the back of the shed, and they just rip his parts off as they see fit to replace them on other trains until, and I quote, there was nothing left of him. To be fair, it is confirmed as just being a scary story in universe, but given the rest of the things that I've talked about and I'm going to talk about, I'd say it's a distinct possibility that this is just something that happens semi-regularly. Now, going back to the whole scrapping and smelting thing, in the 2009 movie Hero of the Rails, we meet Hero, who is the oldest engine on the island. He was the first, I believe, to arrive, and he is currently living in the woods in abject terror of being sent to the scrap and smelting yards. He says that,
I know what happens to old engines that cannot be really useful.
A phrase we will come back to quite soon.
They are scrapped and sent to the smelter's yard.
And again, first train on the island, he's seen some shit. He knows so very well how much of a real threat this is. Thomas, however, seems very surprised, but he's young, dumb, and full of steam. In Season 3, Episode 21, Escape, we meet Oliver, who is hiding from his fate of being scrapped in a scrapyard, I think? Not the best place for it. And he has the word scrap just painted all over him, like some weird degradation kink.
Rail me, daddy.
But but the fact remains, he knows he's gonna die. In season 2, episode 4, Saved from Scrap, we meet Trevor, who says, I am scheduled to be broken up next week. He has an execution date. He's gonna die. They're gonna rip him apart. It's not okay. And in season 2, episode 17, The Deputation, Percy begs the Fat Controller as hard as he can to let both the Scottish trains, Donald and Douglas, stay on the island of Sodor. Scottish being an accent that Ringo Starr does his very best with.
Do not fess yourself, Henry.
Because he knows that whichever one of them gets sent back home will be scrapped. They will die.
And if you send them away, sir, they'll be turned into scrap, sir. That would be dreadful, sir.
One of the reasons we know this is because of the whole genocide thing. So here's a fun thing. You know how in regular life you don't really see steam trains anymore? Well, that's true in the Thomas and Friends universe as well. The island of Sodor is just something of a safe haven for steam trains because everywhere else in the world, they're fucking dead. They've been killed. So here's the thing to note, the Reverend Audrey really didn't like diesel engines, and he makes this explicitly clear in his works. In season 2, episode 12, Duck and the Diesel Engine, a diesel engine arrives at the island and is just a smug asshole.
We diesels don't need to learn. We know everything.
Hell, in book 23, Enterprising Engines, 2 diesels straight up declare that they are going to take over the railway. And in season 3, episode 20, Tender Engines, Diesel just straight up tells Gordon,
I'm afraid that no amount of tenders will save you in the end. We diesels are taking over and we don't need tenders to make us important.
And in the show, the Fat Controller says,
Don't worry, Gordon, that will never happen on my railway.
The source material, however, a little more blunt. He says, yep, he's telling the truth. They're all fucking dead. All of my brothers? Yes, they're all dead. Have a nice day, Gordon. In the 2000 movie, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, which we will get back to, I promise, Diesel 10 just straight up says that he is here to finish his genocidal quest to wipe out all the remaining steam engines.
I've come back to find a steam engine.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah, he came in.
Not the one I want. She escaped me once before. As long as she exists, so do the others. But if she can be destroyed...
Destroyed? Did you say destroyed?
They're doing this. This is a coordinated effort to just purge the lands of the last remaining steam trains. It's pretty dark. So why is it the island of Sodor is this safe haven, this sanctuary for steam engines? Why are they allowed to keep on existing here? And the answer is, they're allowed to keep on existing by the skin of their teeth. Teeth which they do have, by the way. They are constantly under threat of being scrapped and replaced unless they are, quote unquote, really useful. In the books, the term really useful is capitalized. It is a designation, an almost cult-like branding. Because the truth is, this isn't exactly a hot take, but the trains are kinda slaves. Trevor refers to his previous owner as his master.
My master would send us from farm to farm.
It's not great. I don't love it. Feels a bit off.
You are a very disobedient engine.
But basically what really useful means in this universe is that you have value, that you are of worth to this ecosystem, and you can be used. You are of use. And trains are constantly having to prove that they are useful, to fight for it. They are constantly talking about and worrying that they are not really useful anymore. Sounds like pretty regular capitalism, to be honest.
No, Mr. Fat Controller, I'll be really useful. Oh God! No, please God, no!
But don't worry, because it's not just the fear of no longer being really useful and therefore getting sent to the scrapyard that keeps the trains in line. There's also just a wide array of baffling and inhumane threats and punishments that all the characters in this universe are constantly subject to. In season 4, episode 1, Grand Puff, we learn the story of Smudger, a veritable little scamp of a train who sometimes falls off the rails and doesn't like to do what he's told. So they rip off his fucking wheels, brick him into a shed, and turn him into a generator. And like Henry, he just has to watch people go about their lives. But unlike Henry, he's not let out. That's just his life now.
He's still there behind our shed. He'll never move again.
Jesus, Reverend. In season 4, episode 23, we meet Scruffy the truck, who gets ripped apart, and not to victim blame, but he kinda deserved it. In the show, he gets put back together and made anew and doesn't complain or misbehave anymore, but in the books, it's quite heavily implied that they just let him die. Let him die. In book 40, chapter 2, Sir Handel's plan, a train tries to chuck a bit of a sickie, as it were, take a few days off work. We've all done it. He does this by breaking a piece of himself off, and while they're waiting for the replacement piece to come in, they shove him to the back of a shed and let him sit there thinking that he is going to be replaced, that he is going to be scrapped. And when someone walks up to tell him that they've finally got the replacement pieces in, he begs for his life before they can say as much. He pleads, he says he'll be really useful, he'll be good, he won't do it again. And instead of saying, whoa, 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 Sir Handel, it's fine. It's fine. We were just waiting for your piece to come in. They go, all right then, I guess we'll let you live. Like the sick fucks they are. God damn it. In season 5, episode 16, Thomas, Percy, and the old slow coach, we meet Slow Coach, who is an old coach that is no longer deemed really useful. And the only reason she hasn't been scrapped yet, by the way, all the carriages are women for some reason, is because they just haven't had time to get around to ripping her apart.
She'll be broken up when we find the time.
Horrible. And she finally becomes useful again when a building conveniently burns down and she becomes accommodation for some laborers. But I think it's safe to assume that when she's not useful anymore, they're just gonna scrap her. In season 3, episode 23, Bulgy, we meet Bulgy Wulgy Uwu, the bus, who is admittedly a bit of an asshole.
Yaboo Snubs, he jeered as he rode away.
I'm sorry, one more time?
Yaboo Snubs.
Nah, I didn't quite get that.
Yaboo Snubs.
Yaboo Snubs. All right, now he desperately wants to prove that he is more useful than even the trains, and in doing so, he gets himself stuck under a bridge. So what do? Do they repair him? Do they thank him for his efforts to exceed at his job? No, they turn him into a fucking hen house. They leave him on the side of the road and fill him with cloaca-ridden chickens.
He's a hen house now, and his lies can do no harm.
And then there's Bulstrode the boat, pretty much the only boat, I might remind you, that even has a face. And what happens to him? Well, Percy just pushes a run of trucks onto him, of which both Bulstrode and the trucks get the blame, even though it's most definitely Percy's fault, the piece of shit. And how do they thank or apologize to Bulstrode for this? They beach him and say,
now you can just stay here. Children can play in you all day, and at long last you'll be useful.
What the fuck, man? Speaking of trucks, we need to talk about troublesome trucks for a second. These guys are the singing, giggling, mischievous minions of the Thomas and Friends universe that absolutely litter this nightmare island, and they are not okay.
Trucks are waiting in the yard, packing them with diesel. Show the world what I can do, gaily boast the diesel.
They love to push around other trains. They actively work to derail trains. They literally don't appear to care if they die in the process, and maybe even find it appealing. At the very least, they find it hilarious.
Laughed and laughed.
They laugh at Bulstrode almost drowning, which again was Percy's fault, but still, dick move. And sometimes they just straight up kill themselves for fun. I got nothing. I don't know what they're about. Alright. I said I would get back to Thomas and the Magic Railroad later, and I've run out of other things to talk about, so we're gonna have to talk about. This is a 2000 movie written and directed by Britt Allcroft, who we have to thank for adapting the book series into the television series. My understanding is that a lot of the fandom, and even the people in control of the franchise now, consider this movie thoroughly non-canonical, and I can kinda see why. It makes a few statements and implications that change things. Number one, the island of Sodor, and in fact, Thomas the Tank Engine's entire reality exists in a pocket dimension, an alternate universe that exists in the same physical but like liminal space as a place called Shining Time, which features Shining Time Station, another series that Britt Allcroft made in America, and she's God. So there's this train called Lady who has been badly damaged but repaired and then hidden away in a mountain for her own protection. She doesn't run anymore and has lost all of her magic powers, which means she doesn't have a face, she can't speak, she can't move, but it is implied that she is still fully conscious and crying out for help. In the original version of the script, the original filmed version of the movie, which had to be edited, she is being pursued by an evil man determined to destroy her called P.T. Boomer. P.T. Boomer is a play on P.T. Barnum, the man credited as founding show business, and is therefore a stand-in for, I guess, show business as a whole. And his whole objective is to destroy her, because he knows if he destroys her, then the entirety of the island of Sodor will cease to exist, because again, the train is essentially God. Also, the train is voiced by Britt Allcroft.
And helping each other brings to life the magic in all of us.
She is the train. The train is her. The implication essentially being, if you take her out of the show will die. And spoiler, she has a unique magic to her, and only when she is returned to the island of Sodor does everything get better and prosper. And also, she only got one more season after this movie because it tanked very hard. And did I mention that Thomas and Friends exists in a pocket dimension? When I went into this, I thought I might see some kind of funny, dark implications. I really did not expect to discover that the Thomas and Friends universe exists in a pocket dimension that is fueled by the magic of a self-insert OC by the series director. Life's full of surprises. I want to give a huge thank you to Lockie from my Patreon-only Discord server. He helped me massively with the research for this, pointed me in all the right directions. He also wanted me to make it very clear that he had nothing to do with anything I said and how I framed anything. If you are a Thomas and Friends fan who is livid at me for getting anything wrong, just know it was all me. I did all of this. He had nothing to do with it. But yes, thank you, Lockie. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next video. If you liked this kind of me doing this thing, talking about a thing, let me know. Maybe I'll do more. I thought I might talk about the origin of furries. Maybe the Pink Panther movie series. That's kind of weird. Who knows? Let me know. Bye.
Hey you, thank you for the money. 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 Hey you, thank you for the money.
Thank you, patrons. We appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.